The objective today is I can describe one vulnerability of domain name servers. And don't forget, DNS actually stands for domain name system. So if I say domain name, if I say DNS servers, I'm not repeating myself with the two S's. It still makes sense. Today's a really fun lesson, so let me start first by talking about yesterday's DOLs, some good possible answers from that, and then we'll get into the really fun stuff about searching out the vulnerabilities of DNS servers. So number one, a good answer could be the internet is basically a network of computers sending messages to request information and computers replying to messages to satisfy information requests. Computers need to identify from and to for all messages. Computers speak in numbers, not names. So that answer was for this question. Why does the internet use IP addresses? Again, it's because they need to know the from and the to on all the messages. That way they get routed to the correct place. And everybody's not seeing everybody else's messages. Second question, why don't we need to know IP addresses? So why don't we need to memorize those? All communication online is via IP addresses. However, we are more familiar with human readable names, most notably URLs like code.org or google.com. These things we can remember. It's difficult to remember 4 sets of numbers. Next question, why do we need a domain name system? So a possible answer would be we need a way to translate human readable names into IP addresses. Nothing fancy there. Just wanted to make sure your answer to number 2 is similar to your answer to number 3. So we're all on the same page. And for the next question, the last one, why don't we all maintain our own DNS? So why don't we keep this all at our own houses or on our own computers? A good answer would be it is inefficient for everybody on the internet to maintain a table of IP addresses. There are many websites I will just never go to, and therefore I never need to know what those IP addresses are. So after answering all these questions and seeing what great answers look like, I have a question for you. Who controls the DNS servers? I asked a similar question like this before. Who controls the internet? Or maybe you remember the question, who owns the internet? Well, the top level, most powerful DNS servers are called root servers. So similar to the answer of who owns the internet, people who have paid for these servers to host the web pages, those different organizations that paid for that are going to control many of the DNS servers out there. But in terms of root servers, I mean, the answer is very similar to right there. There's going to be a group of organizations who control those. These are the most important DNS servers on the planet. They essentially run the internet. All other DNS servers cache results from these. So there are 13 in number, and they are maintained by various organizations around the world. So there are only 13 root servers. Think, Right, Share. Who controls these level 1 DNS servers? So here's just a little image for you to try to wrap your mind around this. If you want to see this table at the bottom a little bit better, all you have to do is go to Wikipedia and search root servers. It says here, each root server is prefixed with a letter from A to M. So A to M should only be 13 numbers. So the root servers are A, rootservers.net, up to M, rootservers.net. It must be noted that no server has all the records. It simply directs the requests to TLD servers. These are the ones that are just below the root servers. And the table in the previous slide is hard to read. Like I said, just Wikipedia this, root server, root name server even, and you'll see things like NASA, the University of Maryland, the U.S. Army Research Lab, ICANN, VeriSign, etc. These are the organizations I was referring to when I said that there are organizations that control the root servers. Your Think, Right, Share on this is which organization surprised you the most? If I was a student and I was answering this, I'd say, really, the U.S. Army Research Lab has control over root servers. That is curious to me. I'd like to know a little bit more about that. These are, all 13 of these, okay, are the most guarded servers on the planet. Even Anonymous could not take them down, and they tried. Note that these 13 root servers are split up into nearly 120 different servers that run at different countries. It's actually 13 because of technical limitations. The actual location of the servers are given on the next slide. The root servers are usually located near the internet backbone so as to prevent DDoS attacks from bringing it down. My think right share on this. What is an internet backbone? This is one of those think right shares I actually want you to Google so you can answer correctly. So here's a map of not only the root servers but the lower next level TLD servers as well. So there's a concept called DNS spoofing. This is where a hacker creates a fake DNS server. Bad news. So what's the problem? If your computer or network is pointed at a malicious DNS server, this is how DNS spoofing works, set up by a scammer, the malicious DNS server could respond with a different IP address entirely. In this way, it's possible that you could see Facebook.com in your browser's address bar, but you may not actually be at the real Facebook.com. Behind the scenes, the malicious DNS server has pointed you to a different IP address. You could kind of see it here. So the number may not actually be the correct IP number for that website, but this is how the hacker's tricking you or tricking the company they're attacking. One solution for this to avoid the problem is to ensure that you're running good antivirus and anti-malware apps. You should also watch for certificate error messages. Or encrypted HTTPS websites. You should see that S in the HTTPS header. For example, if you try to connect to your bank's website and you see an invalid certificate message, this could be a sign that you're using a malicious DNS server that's pointing you to a fake website, which is only pretending to be your bank. So you got to watch out for that. And here's a little moment of TMI, too much information for you. You don't necessarily need to know this next part, but I think it's fascinating and worth knowing. So if your ISP, if their DNS servers are fast and you're located a long way from OpenDNS or Google DNS servers, you may actually see lower internet speed if you go ahead and switch to a DNS server of your own choosing. Now, there are good reasons to go another route with a DNS server, so you can use OpenDNS or Google's DNS servers, but be careful when doing this. One reason to do this would be, let's say you're a parent and you want to limit your entire house from certain types of websites. If you use OpenDNS, you can specify what websites you want to come in and out of your house, and therefore the children of the house or the husband or wife will never be able to get to a website that you have determined to be blocked by controlling your own DNS server. So a quick standards review. That was pretty much the lesson. So we talked about the vulnerabilities of DNS servers. Now you know there's a personal one, a person at their own house establishing which DNS server will be used by that network, or you have a broader one of hackers using DNS spoofing. Before we get to the DOL, let's just do another quick standards review. This is me bringing you into my thought process when I create lessons. We have these 4 standards. 6.1 says the internet is a network of autonomous systems. 6.2 says characteristics of the internet influence the systems built on it. 6.2.1 says explain characteristics of the internet and the systems built on it. And the last one, 6.2.2, explain how the characteristics of the internet influence the systems built on it. Okay, after staring at this a little bit, it does not look like this is a mistake having these 2. The first one says explain characteristics of the internet. So you're going to do that. And then it says explain how the characteristics of the internet influence the systems built on it. So first you have just the explaining what the characteristics are, and then you have the explain how these characteristics are influencing the internet. So you got 4 facts here, 4 things. How does DNS connect to any of them? Your DOL-TIL of the day is describe one vulnerability people may encounter when trying to use a DNS server and provide 2 specific details, please.